Oh, hi, everybody. You should be admitted into the chamber where we will somehow continue to discuss this difference between people on different stages of the ladder of evolution, so that indeed they are passing through an earlier stage and are in a way in combat with those who have left that stage far behind. Basically, it's a question of the, excuse me. It's a question of the second ray and the sixth ray. The two rays which are so prominent in the United States, but they have a much wider significance because there are just at the end of this Piscean age, there are just so many sixth ray souls that are still in incarnation and will not be for very long. So it's a bit like a last stand on those narrow principles which seem to fortify such people, although really it's not a fortification, it's an ossification. By that I mean, turning calcified and rigid and as an adherent to a former and more selfish way of life. On the other hand, although humanity is given the fourth ray as a major ray, they are the fourth kingdom, and they are the fourth creative hierarchy, that is, we are all that. The day will come when the second ray is going to be the soul ray of humanity. So already you can see that there is a wider connotation to this conflict between the sixth ray and the second ray. And if you're on the sixth ray, well, you can't help it. There you are. But it is possible for some people to begin to make a transference, and that's where we come in. From red to purple to indigo blue. And we want to help get some of those people into the purple range. I just do want to welcome you. Well, we have Michael and Joe and helping me keep things straight. And we also have Hi Martha and Anna and Anne, Catherine, Diana, Ava, Francois, Heike, and someone who's on an iPhone and is a guest, but I assume the name is not iPhone. Johi, hi, and Leslie and Margot. Martine, Olivia, Risto, and Retudink, maybe that's the last name, Susie and Tia, and Vivian and Carl, Karen as a guest, and Stacia. So welcome to you as we continue working with the whole glamour issue of people trying to unjustly seize power, regardless of what that may mean for the rights of others, all based upon their emotional and mental crystallizations. It is, let's say, in the United States, a big battle brewing concerning the sanctity of the election process. Some people just don't care who they disenfranchise, who they eliminate, who they cast out as people worthy of a voice or people worthy of a will. It has ever so much to do with the stages of evolution, or the stage of evolution in which they find themselves. And there's nothing they can do about that. And that is the reason why this battle between the brothers is occurring at first in the United States, a battle between a careless autocracy, heedless autocracy, an autocracy which just doesn't care about you, and a democracy. The battle for democracy is being fought out in the United States. We can see it before our eyes. It's going to get intense. It's going to get pretty ugly when the mindless, emotionally polarized loyalists to what? Begin again to attack under the hints and insidious encouragement of the former president. I'm just going to say it right out loud. That's where it's going to come from. And the others are just selfish and cowardly. So you begin to wonder, is there anything worth living for other than to grasp power for one's own self and people similar to oneself? Well, we're all going to learn in time. We're all going to have to pass through the period of privation. DK said it would be so, but some people are very reluctant to give up their prerogatives, which are not based on anything honorable, but just on their ability to steal and sneak and capture through the disenfranchisement of others what normally belongs to others. It doesn't pay to be a thief. And there are so many ways in the Yoga Sutras, for instance, where the true nature of covetousness is discussed, and how it is ever so much more than simply the acquisition of what belongs to other people objectively on the outer plane. It has to do with theft of all kinds, including, of course, mental theft, and I suppose it has application to the astral plane. So, friends, we have our work cut out for us during the next 4 years, and the United States is in the balance, and with that, the angel of the presence and personality of humanity is in the balance. Just so we know, it's a serious time, and we'll have to prepare for a time ahead in the year 2022, when things could get pretty rough, and the ground rules are already being distorted in anticipation of election theft. Okay, I take my stand on that. I know there's a lot of people that may disagree with me, but okay, this is where I stand, and I trust that those of us who care about the human soul and who care about the welfare of humanity as a whole will understand that to steal the rights of others can lead to nothing positive. We are on program 179, and today is the 18th of June. Tomorrow, actually, I think now they call it Juneteenth, 19th, and it's a commemoration of when slavery was formally disestablished within the United States. Of course, there's all kinds of slavery, and it's going on all over the world, but it does help to have a decent individual in the White House, and one who is determined also to give every citizen their fair due. So we'll be celebrating that. Man is not meant to enslave man. It happens all the time, and it certainly happened when the only source of power was human power, which is now, of course, changing radically. But still, the motive is there in the minds of many people. And that adherence to the great heresy of separateness must be eradicated. And I think we're on our way, frankly. I think I've seen, maybe you've seen, more progress worldwide, but especially I'm focusing right now where the heat of the battle is most intense in the United States. I've seen the people of color and those who are not white Anglo-Saxon males rising, and I've seen them take a very important part in the dialogue. So we may well be on our way if the shenanigans of the power hungry do not succeed in thwarting what is intended. Now, friends, let's just read a little bit about our next section, which is what we're actually quite involved with, because that's the meditation we do perform. It's all part of the technique of light. And we're beginning right here to discuss this technique of light. And it goes on really for quite a while, 50 pages. So we'll be working on that as we go along. There's so much to learn. I'm working right now, you may know, on Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 2, Volume 1. I just finished a 3-hour program today, which is going to be sent to you as soon as it's coded on Makara or on our YouTube channel, and I'm working on that stage. It's program number 2020, and it's on the stage of Chela within the aura, pretty far ahead of most of us. But I just want to assert and reassert that what Master DK has managed to give in his books is, for the thinking, spiritually inclined person, really astonishing. Astonishing in its organization, in its depth of detail, in its just straight helpfulness. So friends, do use this next 4 years until that important year comes, 2025. We're in a new installment of teaching, I'm sure, deeply enriching, will be presented. Treat this as a final opportunity in the era of the forerunner to build under yourself a foundation of such knowledge and such meditative technique and such ongoing service that you will be ready for what Master DK has to present. Who knows in what manner? I don't think we're talking about Alice Bailey again. Probably different amanuenses, secretaries, already born, will come forth. And then we have the technology, which Alice Bailey never had. And so the burden on her was just tremendous. But DK will be aided in his presentation of the new teaching by the fact that whoever he uses as his intermediary will have access to this technology. So the technique of light, we've dealt with the technique of the presence cursorily, and it's a very high thing. After all, what is the presence? The presence is the true being, in the sense of a noun, the true being which underlies everything and everyone. So it takes us right up to the triad and the monad, if we use it properly. Now we're descending a bit, and we're going into an area that involves the medium of light and the ajna center, and the mind as a projecting agent. So a little bit of this anyway, friends. We come now to a consideration of the next development and service to be rendered through the medium of another technique. Technology and technique, of course, are words that go together. And we are assuming there are all kinds of occult technologies that we acknowledge as techniques, many of which we have to be given permission to use, and which are imparted to us not through books particularly, but interiorly. And in some of the rituals, the hand to the mouth imparts the secret. The theme is so vast, and there is so much literature to be found in all the world scriptures, commentaries, and theological dissertations on the subject of light, capital L, that the simple truth and a few basic principles are lost to sight in a welter of words. Thus it has been when we consider the simple words of the Christ, covered over by so much ritualism and theology and basic mummery, so that the question remains whether the Christ would ever even recognize in what mankind has made out of his words, would recognize his original intent. So we are part of a simplification, even though there may be many complexities. They can be approached in a simple way in which always the main principle will emerge. In my various books, says DK, I have given much anent this subject. And in the book, The Light of the Soul, which I wrote in collaboration with AAB, now he was providing the translation of the Patanjali slokas, and I think AAB, under advisement and with consultation, was writing the commentary. Okay, in The Light of the Soul, which I wrote in collaboration with AAB, an effort was made to indicate the nature of the light of the soul. Now, the soul, we have been told, actually is light. And there are many things about light that are yet to be discovered. Light actually is substantial. Meaning it is, in a way, the very substance of any universe. I'm recalling DK's statement to PDW, that advanced disciple who was a Jesuit, Jean Montchartre, and DK talked about meeting this man's needs until that time when he enters into that light wherein consciousness awakens, free from the bonds of flesh. So, in a way, everything we are seeing is some kind of gathering together of light corpuscles. Now, the true underlying substance of any universe is pure being, but it is as if light follows next. And we want to learn to live in a new light, quite different from the captivation which we experience because we are, well, simply engaged with the lower part of our nature. The key to this technique of light, right, is to be found in the words, "In that light shall we see light." Now notice how he varies the spelling there, because we need a certain amount of the preliminary light to awaken us to a still greater light. We are in, right now, a stratum of light. And the proper use of the point of tension or stratum of light in which we find ourselves will reveal a still greater light in which we have to learn to live. A simple paraphrase of these apparently abstract and symbolic words could be given as follows. It's always nice when DK takes a very arcane phrase and puts it into a language which leaves no doubt as to what it is. When the disciple has found that lighted center within himself and walk in its radiating light, I mean, we would see everything from the point of view of our soul nature, which means we have succeeded in our meditation, and can walk in its radiating light. He is then in a position or a state of consciousness, if you prefer, wherein he becomes aware of the light within all forms and atoms. And in fact, I guess I would say that the forms and the atoms are species of light. The inner world of reality stands visible to him as light substance, a different thing to the reality revealed by the intuition. Well, you know, reality is beingness somehow. It is what we are, and from that pervading something, all things are generated. We are the source, finally, of all generation. But he's seeing a new and light-filled world. He can then become an efficient cooperator with the plan, because the world of psychic meaning, that is of the soul, we're not just talking about the astral body here, becomes real to him, and he knows what should be done to dispel glamour. It might be stated that this process of bringing light into dark places naturally falls in 3 stages. So we'll look at that in a minute. And but before that, he has found a lighted center within himself and can walk in its radiating light. And then the whole world reveals the light of which it is essentially made. Right now, sorry, everything seems quite opaque, neither translucent nor transparent. But all that changes when we find the lighted center and can walk ourselves within that lighted center. And then we become aware of the light in all forms and atoms, and even, as I suggest, that all forms and atoms are light itself. Now, there's a lot more from the point of view of occult physics that we have to go into to really understand these things, but let's just say we live right now in the lower 18 subplanes, which is basically the dense physical body of the planetary logos. Things are opaque and not translucent and not transparent, but with the refinement that comes with finding the lighted center within ourselves, the whole world then is filled with light, and not only filled with light, but is seen as derivative of light itself. So the inner world of reality, especially, stands visible to him as light substance. And then we could expand on this difference between what intuition may reveal. It reveals a kind of wholeness of everything perceived. And then a better cooperator results. You can become an efficient cooperator with the plan, because the world of psychic meaning becomes real to him, and he knows what should be done to dispel glamour. Well, the psyche is the soul, and the world of meaning is the world of the soul. So we have the 18 lower subplanes of phenomena, then we have the world of meaning in the soul realm, and then we have the world of significance in the triadal realm. We have the world of being in the monadic realm. That's also carried up to the Logoic plane, where not only do we have pure being, but we have causes, the world of causes and of true archetypes. Sorry here. So this process of bringing light into the dark places, and what are we but those who must do so, falls into 3 stages. And fortunately, it's not too long to describe them. Now, do take notes, friends, about things you might like to discuss along the way. Otherwise, the memory will not hold. Number 1, the stage we're in, the beginner and aspirant, I suppose, even after the first initiation, as all true aspirants have taken the first initiation, the stage we're in, the beginner and the aspirant, endeavor to eradicate glamour out of their own life by the use of the light of the mind. So we might say, look, think about it seriously. Use the mind. The light of knowledge is a major dispelling agent in the early phases of the task and effectively eliminates various glamours which veil the truth from the aspirant. The light of knowledge is a major dispelling agent. And if you have a good mind, if you can focus reasonably, logically on what it is you believe glamorously, that's one way to eradicate the glamours. Like what I'm believing just doesn't make sense according to what my mind testifies to. Like it just can't be because it doesn't make sense. Okay, that's for the beginner and the aspirant. Basically, they mean the same thing. And then the stage wherein the aspirant and disciple work with the light of the soul, which is the light of wisdom. Which is the interpreted result of long experience. And this streams forth, blending with the light of knowledge. So we have 2 different kinds of light with which the aspirant is going to work, and wisdom is characterizing the soul. If you think about the Buddha, he is, from one terminology, the Lord of light and the Lord of wisdom. Funny then that so many Buddhists deny the existence of the soul as we have come to understand its nature under the guidance of master decay. So we're out after the elimination of glamour now. So many people are raging in glamour these days. To begin with, they don't think. They just repeat what they have heard. I remember a lady knowing that the election had been stolen because she heard it on television. Okay, well, if you're dealing with that kind of supine receptivity, like television is speaking the truth at all times, well, a lot of correction has to be made. Then comes the light of wisdom. How many people even know there is a soul except to save it from hell or to send it to heaven? How many people can work with it or realize that it is an aspect of the constitution of man? Millions do not know that. And they are maybe suspicious if you try to confront them with that idea. Then the third point, the stage wherein the disciple and initiate work with the light of the intuition on the fourth subplane of the Buddhic plane. It is through the blended medium of the light of knowledge, personality light, and the light of wisdom, soul light, that the light, capital L, is seen, known, and appropriated. The light, this light, thus, or puts out the lesser lights through the pure radiance of its power. So what do we have? We have we have personality light. We have soul light and intuitive light. Maybe we can, sort of increase the level, the capitalization to try to distinguish. But we have to be the initiate, really, and be able to be focused in the ashram and on the Buddha plane to blend those three lights. Okay. And all this comes from starting by finding the light center within ourselves, the lighted center. So this is the light of the soul, it's the light of wisdom, and personality light preceded it, but it's the higher part of personality light. It's the reasonable, rational, logical mind. And then comes the knowing of the light of the intuition. Now, all of this is a lengthy process to put these lights together and make us efficient in working in the light and with the light. You have, therefore, the light of knowledge, the light of wisdom, and the light of the intuition, and these are three definite stages or aspects of the one light. You have all this. And they correspond, as you can well imagine, to the physical sun, personality, light, the heart of the sun, soul, light, and the central spiritual sun, intuitive, even monadic light. In this last sentence, you have the clue and the key to the relation of man to the Logos. The Logos, in this case, is the one light. Well, we have to repeat these analogies, and in our horoscope, the physical sun is represented or representing the personality, and it is our sun sign position. The heart of the sun represents the soul. It is the rising sign position. And the central spiritual sun, the point opposite, the sun sign. And here is the sun sign. Whoop. Get that right. Now, when you think about yourself, so where are you functioning? And you can use the horoscope as a jumping off point. Are you deeply into the sun of probability and bringing your personality nature forward through the sun sign? Or are you making the transition to the rising sign and its soul potentials? Or are you among the few, because let's not assume too much about ourselves, where the point opposite the sun sign means or presents itself in its full nature in your life, that is, the monad. I mean, sometimes the point opposite the sun is simply a balancing factor for the personality, something that is needed in order to create less of a one-sided approach. So you add the point opposite the sun sign. But from a higher consideration, something very occult is going on, horoscope after horoscope, showing for those who are at that level a way into the monad, way into the monad. And maybe I can put these in such a color that it makes sense. And here's the heart of the sun. And here is just symbolically, the central spiritual sun. You know, when you have stepped onto the path of occultism and you really mean business, it's just such a new world. And no amount of application is sufficient for people like ourselves to harvest all that has all that has been given. And that is why every day has to contain a reasonable amount of study. It's up to you to decide what is a reasonable amount. I remember in the arcane school, they were suggesting an hour a day. Well, you know, it's compared to what's been given, that's the bare minimum. It's rather paltry. I remember days when I was just literally, I guess I got a little dizzy, you know, studying 10 hours a day because I knew that's what there is there. And how else to approach that level of knowledge that Master DK was giving us. Well, I think we don't need anything else for right now. I'll just read a little because it goes on and starts to elaborate. These stages and their corresponding techniques are apt to be misunderstood if the student fails to remember that between them lies no real line of demarcation, but only a constant overlapping, a cyclic movement or development, and a process of fusion, which is most confusing to beginners. You know how the beginner always wants things cut and dried. This is this, that is that. But when things start to merge and blend and still somehow keep their integrity, yeah, then it becomes a little bit confusing. So just read a tiny bit more, because this is the place now to stop. Just as the result of innate reaction to environment produces the apparatus needed to contact that environment, so the unfoldment of the powers which these techniques serve produces modes of contact with the soul and spiritual environments, each technique being connected with the new environment. So we'll get on with that the next time we get together. And we'll see that we can wield these techniques. Once we have mastered every one of them, we can begin to merge and blend them. You know, every triangle starts circulating quite rapidly and eventually creates this sphere of radiation, which is a synthesis, a oneness of the three. So we have to be aware that that is the case. and not keep our consciousness waiting for a cut and dried demarcation between these techniques. The master's world is very fluid, but still he recognizes what has come together to produce his increasing penetration upon the path. So let's put this into the proper place, if I can do that. He's going to tell us a lot. He's going to tell us a lot about this technique, these techniques and what they really do. And we want to be alert when that comes. I think we will find it most interesting. So our conclusion is taking place on the 18th of June, and it's been at 5 p.m. And I suppose the reading is 1:16. And now, have I done this correctly? I think, would this be evening presentation 180? I correct me, Joe, if I'm incorrect here. And the next one will be 181.
Right. We're ending 179, and the next one is 180.
Okay, we are ending 179. Okay, and 180. And I'll put it on the XX of, when is that next one? Do you have
XX of July.
of JUL? Okay, we'll see what we can do. And it'll be reading 117. Is that
Right.
it?
Yep, you've got it.
Okay, and here we are on page, basically, page what? 192. Okay. So 192. And here we've had 190 to 192. Maybe not a lot of pages, but something deeply worth thinking about. And as you know, I've been offering mostly here in Europe nightly programs. Is what I can do at the moment. And maybe the time will come when I can again offer morning and nightly programs, but right now it's just best for me to offer the evening programs. So really, I'm really interested in what lies ahead. All they have to tell me is the technique of the presence, when successfully followed, enables what? The intuition, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll learn the value of each one of these techniques, of the presence, technique of light, and the technique of, I think, technique of indifference, which has to do with the dispersion of Maya. I wonder if we realize how much we are working on the inner planes when we follow these techniques. occult work is not just on the outer planes, and the outer planes, as far as the planetary logos is concerned, are really the lower 18 subplanes. And from another perspective, even the lower 21 planes, from the solar Logoic perspective, are considered to be outer planes. So it's a new world. And we've been invited in to work in that way. Okay, now if Joe, you would be so kind if there are any questions or
Well, I'm glad
comments.
you asked. There is a question from Diana. Can we say that opacity corresponds to the 18 subplanes, transparency to the next 3 subplanes, the causal body, and translucence is related to the spiritual triad? And if this is correct, the translucent body can be reached under the light of the intuition?
Okay, here's how I put it. I would put them in a slightly different order. I would agree with you with regard to opacity for the lower 18 subplanes. Then I would place translucence for the world of the soul. And then, you know how it is when you have like a kind of a frosty, cloudy globe of light, how the light gets through, but you don't see the light bulb, okay? When it comes to the triad and monad, I would then call it transparency, because there's just nothing then that's in the way. It's not frosty, it's not cloudy, and you see the light bulb, you see the monad. So that's the order that I would put them in. And the second part of the question there, Joe, was what?
And it was, if this is correct, what the translucent body can be reached under the light of intuition. So given your reordering, would it be the transparent body can be reached under the light of the intuition?
Yeah. And especially, we have to realize that although the abstract mind is part of the triad, its focus is still within the dense physical body of the solar logos, the lower 21 subplanes. So yes, it all begins with the Buddhic plane, where we, through intuition, we begin to have what is called straight knowledge, as Master Moria calls it. There's just nothing in the way. Maybe we want to call it pure reason, or on the 4th subplane of the Buddhic plane, intuition. But yes, the transparent state is reached in the cosmic ethers, which are Buddhic, Atmic, Monadic, and Logoic. And so one of our next tasks is really to develop the intuition, which is not quite the same as the so-called, as DK says, psychic hunch. You know, like, oh, I think I know this, blah, blah, blah. This intuition has to do with the perception of oneness in a state of a universal love. Right at the beginning of the book, Glamour, you'll find a great description of what intuition is. So, except for the reordering, I would say yes, that everything else seems to me correct. But it's a lot easier at first to be translucent than it is to be fully transparent. So think about that one and see, what you come up with. We want to see things exactly as they are. And we don't want frostiness or cloudiness or vaporousness to let the light through, but not let us know where the light came from. I guess that's the best I can do on that one, Diana.
Yeah, that was a great clarification. So Anne asks, could an individual's evolution of consciousness in a prior life seemingly be beyond where a currently incarnated individual is aware in the present moment? And can it be revealed to them again in this current incarnation slowly? In other words, could someone be an initiate in a prior life and not yet know it in this life?
Well, I think it's often the case that we have taken the first, or maybe in some cases, the second initiation, and we don't know it because we're so covered over by karma and involvement of what has to be done in this life. He says there's some quite high members of the hierarchy who have foregone their knowledge of their previous association with hierarchy so they could concentrate even more on the specific task that they have. However, I will say that in certain incarnations, and probably for quite a few people, the process of recapitulation begins. And even though they really don't know whether they've taken the first degree or even the second degree, I'll keep it confined to the probable, something begins to happen in their life, which is an episode which seems to come out of nowhere and indicates some of the qualities of one or other of those initiations. So indeed, it's possible to be unknowing at the beginning, and maybe because of a self-chosen limitation throughout the entire incarnation, because the individual just knows they will accomplish more for the hierarchy without being additionally burdened by knowledge of occultism or initiations. At the same time, DK said, we want people to know who they are so they can work with greater effectiveness in their present life. It will strengthen them to know their occult roots. So I think that tells us those episodes of recapitulation can be quite interesting. I'm sure that just about everybody, I mean, I can't be for sure, but just about everybody has taken the first degree. And there can be some arisings in the heart and mind, some sense of a new birth, which signals to the person, this is a recapitulation, especially if you know your occultism. If you don't know your occultism, then you're liable to say, oh, I was born again. I was born again. Now, some of those born again experiences are in fact recapitulations. So I hope that in those several things that I said, I've indicated that it is possible not to know at first who you are and what you've done, but to be reawakened to the likelihood of prior doings and an earlier initiatic identity through the recapitulatory process. Now, I'm very doubtful that any of us is particularly recapitulating the third initiation, and certainly not the fourth, but with respect to the first and second initiation, it's more probable, more likely. So be on the lookout for those areas of your life where the recapitulatory episode may be entering. I think, I had such a thing going on in my life, and I just recognized it as changes in the head and the so-called ripple effect that DK talks about. What does it say? Almost all of us have had the experience of standing before the Christ for the first initiation. There was one person who did not have that in DK's group, but nevertheless, to show you there is flexibility, he was made an accepted disciple by DK for his own protection, even though he had not really taken even the first initiation. So the exception always proves the rule, shall we say. That's about what I can say on that.
Olivia has something that she would like to share. I'm going to unmute you or ask you to unmute yourself. Olivia? You.
Olivia?
I
You're there.
I did it.
You're there. There you are. Okay.
Yes, I'm just going to comment on what Michael was saying. Michael, what you were saying, because I work, in the field of new group of world servers with so many people that are doing outstanding work, and they just by their life and their love for humanity and their dedicated service and their inclusiveness, that they have achieved some initiation, certainly the first and maybe the second or whatever, but they just wouldn't relate to our terminology. They wouldn't relate to our perspective. But I think the truest vision is just the life they live and the embodiment of so many principles and virtues. So, I was just thinking about that because I'm involved in helping to co-sponsor this World Unity Week that's coming up tomorrow, June 19th through the 26th. And my gosh, we have 200 conveners and over 500 free events. And people like Jane Goodall. I mean, my gracious, look what she's done for the environment. And you talk to her, and if we used our esoteric terminology, she really wouldn't particularly relate to that. But if we use other words, of course she would. or
mm.
Marianne Williamson, people like that that are doing really outstanding work. They just don't use the framework that we do, but we can just tell because of the service and inclusiveness and love that they have. So anyway, so if anyone is interested in this, it's worldunityweek.org. It's free and it runs June 19th through the 26th. And, you know, there's a lot of amazing people in the new group of world servers participating in that.
Maybe you put that in the chat box, possibly.
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
Well,
that would be really good. Yeah, it is a fact that there are a lot of advanced people who, for one reason or another, have either relinquished their earlier knowledge of occultism or are not coming up in that particular way. Now, you know, at one point he tells us that to be a true member of the new group of world servers, I suppose there's a whole ladder of possible positions that one should have taken the second initiation. To be a man or woman of goodwill, it's not necessary. But to be one of the more central members of the new group, then the second initiation is required because they are supposed to keep their eyes open for those who have taken either the first or second initiation. And I also want to say that there's no question that knowing, as we hope we know somewhat, the details of the occult science as Master DK presents them can be a very big advantage in the long run. But you know, I've seen great workers who, when they run into our stuff, it's not only their way, but they put their hand up because it seems to them not inclusive or something of that nature, or violating the man-woman polarity or some reason, you know. But we for whatever reason have found ourselves studying trustworthy occultism from a master teacher. So we accept that path and we make the best of it, knowing that it has peculiar advantages. I don't think anybody who's really been into it would want to give it up. Thank you, Olivia. Okay, anything
I'm
else?
not seeing anything else.
Did you say?
I am not seeing anything else. No hands, no comments.
Wait, Tuya might have something to say here. She's outside.
Tuya.
She's outside gardening, and but she's gardening around the temple. So and so she's listening to everything.
I'm sorry, Tuya. I just there you are. You unmuted yet? There you go.
Okay, hi. Sorry. Well, about this discussion about the initiatory process and about how do we become effective. I have been thinking lately a lot about that and studying about what DK is saying about the invocation. And that is what has been dawning to my mind, that I think that is one of the key things the power, how strongly the disciple becomes in his invocation power. When we think about the second initiation, that it is related to the throat center as well, very strongly, that there is something about that when one would be thinking that why not that is why not that is enough if you are in your heart for humanity. Of course that is a lot, but there seems to be something else in that power to hold, and in that sense affect the lower lunar lords by the power of invocation, that makes some kind of preach from above, from the masters, that they can affect and influence in the world. Because why it is so that when we think about how many millions of people are thinking about them good future, maybe only in smaller circles, but still there are millions of people who are dreaming all the time peace, who are dreaming of the better future for their children, for instance, and for their beloved ones. But yet the situation on earth is still so unstable and still so full of hate. And I think that is one of the things to be studied, what the invocation really means. When we think about the great invocation, that is invocation as well. And it was given not just like everyday action, but it was a discussion in the hierarchy to even, and then Sanat Kumara was giving the permission to use that invocation. So there's something very deep mystery related to invocation, and I think we should sometimes study together of that subject.
Good points. And this second degree, which basically not only continues to open the heart center, but brings the solar plexus to that heart center, involves also a peculiar awakening of the intelligence through the throat center. So it's a very decisive moment, because at that point, whether you know it or you don't know it, you are entering the stream, the current of which takes you on into the ashram. Now, many people who are in that stream, in the new group of world service, they won't recognize that that's what's happening, but they are being led via that rapid process of initiations 2, 3, and 4 to the ashram itself. And one day, whatever they may have relinquished in terms of present knowledge of their hierarchical roots, they will have to regain that knowledge. That will come. So the whole new science for the Aquarian age is the science of invocation and evocation, scientifically, rhythmically performed under the seventh ray very strongly. And whether or not wonderful people are at work, and they are, one day that knowledge of hierarchical roots will have to be regained. Okay, we're on our way, friends. We're on our way. Thank you,
May I
Tulio.
add a thought?
You bet, Joe.
You know, this discussion has really caused me to consider the principle of continuance as DK lays it out for us. And although it's a very high capacity of God to persist and remain, it's for disciples what he calls endurance. And it is this seed that helps me understand this whole process, that, you know, cyclic impulse. And he talks about the work of individual human beings. It's the awakening of soul consciousness. And then it comes from this response to synthesis that seems to be more possible on a wider scale. I think the comments that people have had. And to me, the most interesting thing that he talks about in relation to our activities is that it's a hint to the true purpose of group meditation. So these themes that have come through today, it seems to fall under this great impulse that we have to endure, to continue to move from the personality to the soul, and then keep that focus on the higher.
Good, good. The unless group meditation is instituted in a really effective manner, and you know, coming up in the future, it must be. We're told that the time-space schedule of the planetary logos cannot be met unless the factor of group meditation is finally acquiesced to and utilized, as it is not yet utilized. So everything about Aquarius is suggesting the group, and indeed it will be an age of the seventh ray group, deeply engaged in invocatory and hopefully evocatory meditation. So we're already doing it, you know, a little bit, and we meet as groups rhythmically and cyclically, and before long it will be the characteristic of many progressive groups. So we're on our way into the new group life. Thank you for your thoughts on that. Are we there yet, Joe?
I think we're there.
Okay. All right. Well, look, I'm going to
You're going to endure.
yeah, there's a marvelous, beautiful section, sorry, in the oratorio by Mendelssohn called Elijah. And you know, the Christ said, don't you know, Elijah is with us. So anyway, this section goes like this. It's a beautiful chorale by Mendelssohn. You know how in the St. Matthew Passion, or what, all those passions that Bach wrote, there's always these wonderful chorale sections where all of the busyness of the music breaks off and you get this resounding choral effect. And the words are, and the words that he used as it was written in English, he that shall endure to the end shall be saved. Of course, we really have to understand what saviorship means, but I recommend it if you want to listen to something really beautiful. It's near the beginning of the whole story. So I'd like to continue with this glamour of emotional obsession. You know, we find people using all of their mental power to protect their emotional obsessions with power, with wealth, with superiority, with prerogatives, it's like, you get out of here, I'm the boss, okay? It's a deeply felt emotional reaction that presently the people who are trying to, I'm just going to say it boldly, steal the midterm elections and the presidential elections of 2024, they are in the grips of this irrational emotional obsession. Now, a lot of them just don't have the mentality to see what's going on. And there are maybe some good reasons, they felt they had been left behind by the elite, so-called, that have all these tremendous privileges while more and more is being taken away from the sixth-ray types. Well, in a way, that's almost inevitable because they are at the end of their cycle. But what DK told us is that the sixth-ray type can always be far more destructive than the first-ray type, who has a wider point of view and has learned something along the way. Remember, you cannot have a first or second ray personality or a first or second ray soul initially. It's only as the first initiation is approached that those possibilities open up before you. So we really have a strange kind of esoteric class warfare going on. The classifications are a bit like the caste system in India, which was meant to be spiritual rather than to manifest itself sometimes so cruelly. But you've got the Brahmins at the top and the Kshatriyas, I guess they're the warrior class, and I forget exactly what they call the mercantile class. They are the third. I can't remember the name. But then the Sudras, or the untouchables. Well, that has been taken to extremes. It has been transferred to England, where so many reincarnations of Indians from India took place. But it exists in kind of an internal esoteric class contrast having to do with levels of incarnation, levels of experience. Now, of course, you can't say those things so directly to everybody, you cannot. But it will be demonstrated that people all have to go through certain phases, and they do demonstrate the limitations of those phases. Nothing to be done about it. And the natural factor in humanity of envy and jealousy and incapacity thinking that it has capacity. These are all great dangers. And we're living in the midst of it right now. So people, they don't know that they don't know. So one has to find a way to teach such people, and we have been such people in the past. So now we go on with those ideas in mind. Our glamour then will be these emotional obsessions, which are filled with suspicion, conspiracy, envy, jealousy, and blind belief in demagogic leaders. Now, let's make sure I'm in the right place. It will be this. So we're not going to name all 33 of us who are here right now. Usually these are done in smaller groups, but we will be aware that we have a goodly group. When we think about those who have gathered at present, you can see their names if you wish under the participants. I've already welcomed everybody that was here when I was welcoming, but now more have joined us. Okay, great. So here we are, some 33 is an important number. Here we are gathered together for the moment. And we think of the synthesis that we can achieve in the silence. We won't take the full 10 minutes, but we will take some few minutes to gather together in the silence. And wherever we are, whether it's US or Canada, South America, Hawaii, or Vietnam, or India, or various countries in Europe, we are feeling ourselves drawn into a unity. Into one groupness. working together, independent of any geography which might otherwise seem to separate us. And we're going to use the Cross of Divinity, as DK calls it, and we remember forehead, heart, left eye, right eye, as we declare the protective formula. As a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point, I never move. Tracing light as we go. So we're making the sign of the Cross of Divinity, and we are wise enough to know that we are intending to work on the greatest plane of illusion, considering illusion as a general condition on all levels. So we really tighten up our sense of unity with each other, and we are, as it were, protected with the Cross of Divinity before the group, as well as before each one of us. Now, in the preparatory stages, we focus the dual light of matter and mind. And this is focused within the mind, within the lower mind. Matter and mind. And we meditate also on soul contact and soul light. Which, remember, in time opens up before us a whole world of lighted phenomena. And now we bring into fusion the two lesser lights of matter and of lower mind with soul light. three lights are as one. And now the group says together, the light is one. And in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. And now, realizing that we are somehow searching for the light of day, which is found upon the Buddhic plane and is associated with the sign Scorpio, which is one of the major glamour busting signs, we pronounce together the formula. Radiance are we, and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. And we visualize that a great searchlight arises from the three lights we have brought together, and we turn this searchlight, which is at once the light of discovery and the weapon of dissipation. We turn that searchlight onto the astral plane. Which DK tells us is more a grayish, clouded mass of changing forms, and not anything so terribly beautiful, so wondrous. It's something that really needs to be cleaned up, cleaned out. And we bring to strengthen our being the spiritual will, so that our being can be even more effective. Now, strengthen the being. And we move on. We're going to throw that light upon the glamour to be dissipated and use certain words of power. But remember what we said about being captivated by emotional obsession. We need more people to truly think, and at first to see logically, reasonably what's going on, and then eventually, as they measure up, to use the technique of light. Not all will immediately measure up, but we need to at least seriously think about the sometimes bizarre and often very distorted thoughts that we are propagating and the feelings that attend those thoughts. Thinking people these days have almost to just drop their jaw, appalled that the human mind could become so unstable as to propagate the wild conspiracy theories, whose purpose finally is to take away the franchise, the rights of others, and just look at them as second-class citizens. It can happen everywhere. So emotional obsession is our target. And the words of power are as follows, and we will be working with these in the silence. The power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of emotional obsession. It's appearing so frequently these days, but we will not allow even that appearance as we advance in our ability to dissipate the glamour of emotional obsession. The power of our united light negates the quality of the glamour from affecting humanity. We know some of these qualities that accompany emotional obsession, preventing true thought and soul perspective. The power of our united light destroys the life behind the glamour. Now, we're going to have our moments of silence, 5, visualizing, according to our own best method, the searchlight penetrating into the glamour, weakening it, dissipating it. 5 minutes of silence and intensity of purpose whilst the work is seen proceeding. So I'll time it and we begin. And we realize that using this technique, some loosening of the grip of this emotionalism, this emotional obsession, has been weakened, and people will begin to learn how to think in a way that is not gullible, that is not conspiratorial, that is not unhinged from reality, in a way that is tethered to truth, not like the statement by the former head of the FBI that said that the ideas being advanced by the former leader were untethered to truth. So, friends, we withdraw our being from the astral plane. We bring it back into the area of light, and we distribute the lights in our imagination to where they belong: matter, mind, soul. We shut off the searchlight, and we sound the Om for all three levels of the personality where illusion can arise, looking at that word in the large sense: the mental, the astral, the etheric, physical. This is, my friends, a deeply spiritual occult work. Most people will have no idea how we can be effective or are really doing anything of value. But we follow this technique of light, which we are learning more and more about. And we, of course, bring our creative imagination into play as an aid to expressing the technique. Tomorrow, I don't believe we have anything particular, but on Sunday, Francis Donald will be presenting one of his webinars, and do take them in if you can, whether it's the webinar on the secret doctrine, or the webinar on the Manly Hall's secret teaching of the ages.
It is the secret doctrine.
Secret doctrine on Sunday. Good. We try to offer to you as much as is possible to keep the esoteric line of thought shining brightly and stimulating your consciousness. And no doubt, the consciousness of those of us who are offering these programs. So before long, this will be up on Makara and also on the YouTube channel, and the same with the 6 stages of discipleship. They'll be going up soon. Lots to study, friends, and lots to apply as we meditate deeply upon what we have been given. So, thank you for being here. And all of us in the glamour group and meditation, what should we say, in the group that communicates, we wish you the very best. Lots of love, many blessings. And we will stop our recording now and have this ready for you as soon as we can. All the very best to you. Bye-bye for now.